Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Mr. Bertram?
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes. At this time, we have one card for public participation. I would like to invite Rachel Caldwell to speak to us this evening. Welcome, Ms. Caldwell.
Okay, before I speak, I actually have data for everybody.
That to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
Good. How are you?
Thanks.
I'm good. I know you guys are probably like, why is she back?
No, always welcome.
Consistency is key. That's why I'm back. On the packets I gave you guys, the first page you'll find the bullying data for Middletown City Schools. And I did check the other districts. I checked Monroe, Lebanon, Franklin, Cincinnati, Hamilton, and Fairfield. They're all up to date. Ours is not. The reason I'm saying that is because people get on Middletown Talk. You guys are not, you're not very friendly. Like, you're not popular on Middletown Talk. Just saying, and it's not only me, it's everybody in the community. People ask, is Middletown a good school district? And everybody chimes in and says no. Automatically, it's automatic. If you want your kid to get assaulted, send them to Middletown. So that's why this is here. That's why I've given you guys that. And a few things I've learned when I was a kid is word of mouth goes a long way. I'm still getting emails and phone calls about other people's children being assaulted. And actions speak louder than words. I've been up here in front of you guys since August. Kind of made a movement. Wasn't intending to, but kind of did that. And then the rest of the packet, you'll find the police reports from before my daughter was physically assaulted, and then when she was assaulted, and then the threats where they threatened to kill her. And in the very last part of the packet, you guys will find my call log to show how many times I was desperate to get help for my child. And people ask me, like, why are you here? Why do you do this? I'm actually a nurse's aide. I take care of people. And I would fight for my residents just the way I would fight for these kids in the Middletown City School District. That's it. That's all I have to say. That's all.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to tonight's consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Items within the consent agenda to address this evening, highlight.
I just had one just to highlight for the board. Again, we had a first read on this last board meeting. If I draw attention to the Houghton Mifflin adoptions that you see there. We did a first read on these are resources that are being connected to our ESSER 3 funds. I know that was a priority for the Board of Education to really start to invest in the instructional resources at the classroom level. We've had a very thorough process that we shared last time, but just want to bring some attention to that particular piece. The board does have a document in front of you. I know Mr. Moore brought this up last time, but the board does have a document that does list the different areas in that instructional resource allocation of $4.6 million in ESSER 3 funds. You do have in front of you. We also sent that to you in a superintendent communication as well. Just more of a celebration, anything about the board's investment using ESSER funds into the resources that our staff and our children will have starting next school year.
Any questions?
I would like to add to that, Ms. Hauser and Ms. Altoff went to a conference last Thursday and Friday, came back with some information on some changes that are occurring within the expenditures of ESSER 3. Although the majority of the money will come out of ESSER 3, licenses and consumables in the years 4, 5, and 6 can't come out of ESSER 3 now, that they must come out only in the years to which they're used. So we'll be using either title funds and/or general funds to pay for those consumables in the outlying years.
That's the last 2 years, you say?
Last 3 years
3
for this
years.
6 year, yeah. We'll be able to spend some for this year, next year, and the final year.
How big of a change is that?
We're still doing the math, but it's, you figure that on the consumables, it'd be half of the consumables, half of the licenses, but none of the textbooks, because all those are purchased, those are okay. And the majority of the expenses do come out of the textbooks. That's the lion's share. So if I were to guess, I'd say maybe a 20th.
The 20th?
20%, I'm sorry, not 20, 20%, yeah,
Yes.
if I had to guess.
Yeah, and
I wish it's a 20th, I wish it's 5%.
we have teacher PD on the agenda too, but that's not included in this list we have, right? I don't see it.
Not on the list Marlon passed out.
Okay, but it is somewhere. It's,
Yes.
Part of the contracts.
okay.
All right, is that enough silence? Should we vote? All right, then Mr. Bertram.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And there was a donation.
Yes, there was, thank you. We received a $500 donation for the upcoming Mini Olympics from Air Products and Chemicals Incorporated, so thank you very much for them, and as usual, I'll send out a letter thanking them.
Thank you.
Under curriculum, we have one item up for approval this evening. It is for Great Minds, Eureka Engage New York Math. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
In a second?
Second. And there's teacher PD involved in that too, right?
Yeah, Mr. Bertram, can you explain?
Yeah, I'll jump in here.
Mr. Stiles?
The item that we're speaking of here is not connected to teacher PD. That's with the resources, but it is part of the adoption. As part of the process that Ms. Hauser went over last board meeting, these are the workbooks that are associated with the new resources that are being purchased. We just wanted to kind of line item those out for the board because it is a pretty expensive line item. So separate from the textbook pieces or the licensures, things of that nature. This does keep us in alignment with the other math program that we do have in place that's being adopted. So just the PD side of that is connected to the contract and the resources, Ms. Mulligan. This is specifically just for the workbooks.
And it's my understanding that the teachers requested this specifically.
As part of the feedback we got from the staff, they wanted an all-encompassing program.
Have these workbooks been used before in the district?
These are brand-new resources that are they're in alignment with the materials that you just approved in the
Okay.
consent agenda.
Okay.
Mr. Bertram, I'd asked you before, the dollar amount per student's around $40 per student, if I'm remembering correctly.
That was the average between the high school and the elementary. Yes.
And I know I inquired last meeting, just I guess for persistency, having a calendar of when new adoptions and these kind of resources moving forward, just so we have a better idea as to what's on the horizon and how it's going to be paid for would be helpful.
Did want to add just for the board, just as part of the process, in the past, you've approved a contract for Moby Max, and we've talked about that at district leadership team. We've reviewed the data. As we talk about alignment of resources, the resources the board has approved in consent, but also if you do take action here and support, Moby Max would not align with Engage New York, so that contract would expire after this year. We no longer keep that resource in play. We'll transition to the resources here that actually do align.
Would that be an added expenditure, or would it be embedded within this right here? Would we be buying another contract with another vendor? Or
No, it would all be part of the program that we've adopted here. Yep.
What is the cost of Moby Max?
I don't have
Probably-
that.
I'm
Yeah, I don't
sorry.
have that information. Yeah,
I was quizzing you.
that's all
seeing
right.
if you
That's all right.
knew it off the top.
It's Monday.
Yeah.
But just to give you just assurance that we are vetting all contracts every single year. Now that we're shifting towards a deeper alignment with new resources, we'll make sure we eliminate those that don't align.
Is that appropriate amount of silence? Good. Mr. Bertram?
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Committees, any committees since our last meeting have
Yes.
convened?
The
Yes.
DLT met.
All right, DLT,
Yes.
Butler Tech.
all right. This would be a good time to hear.
Kathy, do you want to go first on DLT, since I always go first, and then you have to pick up whatever's left?
Sure. It was, we sat at tables and talked about what's going on in the individual schools. There was a lot of interaction among people with their thoughts on what was going on. We saw some data that looked helpful. Honestly, I can't remember the main part of what our table talked about, because I just forgot. Go ahead, Anita.
I thought my focus was mainly on breaking down all the details of the ESSER fund, particularly the materials that are new that are being bought. I thought I wrote this down, and I don't have. Do you remember the total, like the expenditure, the ESSER funds that will go to each student? Do you remember that number? I know she
Was
said
it greater
that.
than $4,000, something?
I can't remember. 4 something sticks in my mind.
Yeah, it was around $4,000.
Well, I thought that was interesting.
That was the answer to the question. It was more than $4,200, and we're looking at an average of about $6,200, $6,300 per pupil.
I thought that was interesting information to have out there,
Okay.
that much is going,
So
per
it's quite a
pupil.
bit more than 4,000,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it was a lot of money.
it is. a
Per
lot of
year,
money.
or is that over
Overall.
the 3
Totality.
years?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I thought it was good to see all these things that, many were in response to surveys of the teachers, of what they wanted and what they needed, that Mrs. Hauser had done prior to this plan. And then we looked at some data.
Yeah, we had some interesting graphs on
Yes.
the learning loss of
Yes.
students.
Yes.
And most of the students had learning loss. There were a few that gained, well, maybe, 30% gained?
I don't know.
But most of the kids had learning
The
loss.
8th grade middle school seems to shine, for whatever reason. That, I thought that was interesting, and it showed the need to focus really on those early years too, the little ones. We talked about the reading focus with the Orton Gillingham reading program, and how the teachers are going to be trained in this, which is just another way to add information about phonics since reading has been taught, or the language arts have been taught in different ways over the years. For many years it was a phonics-based approach, and then we kind of swung to whole language approach, and some people thought phonics was lost, but we're back now. We finally figured out you got to use it all. And the Orton Gillingham method has been used in many places. It's expensive to go out on your own and have training, so it's wonderful that these teachers are going to be trained in this method. I've seen it work, and it's a very structured way to approach phonics, but it makes lots of sense to some kids, more than just learning the sound for each letter, the long sound and the short sound. It's just a little different approach. It puts things together in clusters of sounds. So I think for some kids, and it's been proven, that children who have like dyslexic tendencies really flourish more under this approach. So I'm glad that so many teachers are being trained. I think it's a great opportunity. So that's pretty much what I got all of it.
Also share with the board, we took some time with our vendor, Abre. We gave a pretty unique dive into the platform and its current protocol state. Which gave a demonstration in some very key areas, got some feedback from our district leadership team. We actually had a meeting this afternoon around some additional areas that they've had some significant progress in. Just wanted to share with the board, just as part of this committee, we are planning for April the 4th, just trying to finalize with Abre to get confirmation. But the plan for the work session is to provide the board with a demonstration of the platform as it sits in its current protocol state, and just give you a chance to kind of put your eyes on it like Ms. Mulligan and Ms. Scheibert had the ability to do as part of the DLT. You'll be able to see it as well, Ms. Novak. So we're planning that for the 4th. Probably shoot for about 30, 40 minutes of a demonstration to give you a chance to just understand what they've built from scratch, and we'll get into the coding. But it does speak pretty well to what we are shooting for in the Passport to tomorrow. But please know there's different iterations that it will go through between now and the end of July. We are planning to have some additional stakeholder feedback sessions with different community members and staff as well.
Yeah, as I see it, there's no way possible that this thing can be finished when you start using it with kids. It's something that's going to grow in use over the years. And I thought we had some good conversations about questions, like, even though he was only able to give us like the bare bones part of it, like who's going to be in charge of this and how will you do this? And so those things are all going to be worked out, but I think it's going to be a very interesting and helpful thing for kids, especially, I didn't realize the social emotional learning component is going to be factored in there too. So that's a good thing. It's going to hit a lot of areas. Yeah. That's it.
Butler Tech?
Yeah, so Butler Tech, we went to, the legislative committee went to Washington DC last week with 2 of our administrators and three representatives from businesses in the area, Rhinestall, 80 Acres, and TechSolve. Rhinestall's advanced manufacturing, 80 Acres is a vertical farm that they're buying warehouses. They bought a warehouse in Hamilton, and they're doing farming, and you can find their products in Kroger. But it's a new way to do farming, or an old way that's been repurposed. And it's, they've gone from 80 employees a few years ago in end of 2020 to 300 employees now. The conversations with our senators and congresspeople were mostly around the labor shortages that we are experiencing now and that we will be experiencing as more jobs are created in Ohio. And that's where career tech and what we're doing with our career pathways here, that's where that becomes really important. A lot of companies are hiring students right out of high school. They stress the importance of, like the 80 Acres jobs, those are tech jobs. So there's a lot of technology that's needed, coding, and some internships and experiences while students are in high school. So it's, just talking about the new economy, what it's going to look like. And I saw a lot of alignment with what we're doing in Middletown and our plans for career pathways. I think we're really going to be setting our kids up for success. And in Washington, from what they're saying, it just can't happen soon enough. So everybody's kind of grasping for like how we can continue and start to really connect our students to jobs. And then a lot of these employers are also paying for education, training, college. So there's a lot of opportunities, but then there's also a lot of challenges, especially with a high poverty district, is how do we, like transportation's an issue for a lot of families. How do we get our kids to Mason? How do we get our kids to Hamilton for some of these opportunities? So I think it was really productive. We continue to build relationships with our senators and congresspeople, and there's a lot of support for public education right now. We need that same support at the state as we start to like vision what these jobs are going to look like in Ohio and who's going to be training people for those jobs. So hopefully word gets around that that needs to be a priority. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Did
Yeah.
you get to meet any of our local Congress folks or senators up there?
Legislative aides. So Congressman Davidson. I didn't go into the Portman meeting, but they did meet Senator Portman.
Okay.
Our representative from 80 Acres happened to be his son, so that helped. I met Senator Raphael Warnock from Georgia, and then I was in the meeting with Senator Sherrod Brown's legislative aide. So, and the legislative aides are the ones that are really helping to inform the senators and congresspeople on what the issues are, who's visiting. They were all very concerned about the federal money and if it's reaching local people and how it's being spent, because there's a lot more interest in Butler County, is what I'm finding. Like the more we we visit, the more interest there is in these smaller counties that aren't the major metro areas, and wanting to make sure that people are getting support and resources.
Thank you. That would take us to board reports, unless there are other committees. Mr. Moore, anything to report this evening?
Just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Stiles and to Mr. Bertram. The number of communications that have gone out on ESSER 3, do appreciate that work. Also, some of the details that were shared here tonight, and just looking at how these dollars will be spent, covers a lot of ground. And it's certainly impressive to see some numbers behind the initiatives. I think it's going to serve our students well. And I just really appreciate the work that's gone into it. So thank you for putting that together.
Thank you. Ms. Scheibert, anything to report?
I don't have anything, no, nothing to report.
Ms. Novak?
Nothing to report.
No.
Oh. Just
No one stole your thunder tonight.
I know. I had just 3 quick things. I guess it was mid-last week, Evan and I went over to Miami Middletown and listened to the presentation on the Early College Academy. Seems like a great opportunity and co-op between our schools and the regional campuses. I want to thank Miami University Middletown, the dean, all the work that's going into it, and Mr. Stiles and the work that he's putting into that also. Just and if you don't know about it, I've spoke to a few people. It's for juniors and seniors, or juniors next year, and then hopefully as they become seniors, it's an opportunity to get 2 years of college education paid for. Evan was excited that they pay for food and books, but the food part was excited for him. It just seems like a really neat opportunity if it's a good fit for the young person. It's testing season. I know it's a stressful time of year. Stressful for staff, and it's stressful for the young folks who are taking those tests. And so just my thoughts are with them as they sit, and I know my daughter aims to do, as every kid, really, really well, and wears it on her sleeve when it's a hard thing to go through. And so just wish the best for everybody. And the last piece is I had a high school senior, and this is for Mr. Stiles. He's a junior, going to be a senior, and had some questions about AP chemistry and enrollments and offerings. It was his understanding that AP Chem won't be offered next year, had some questions, and so if we could look into enrollment numbers for chemistry and understand better and get back to that young person. He wrote a nice email to me that kind of put forth a pretty good argument in a very cohesive and calm and respectful kind of way, and I appreciate that. And so if we could find some answers for him, I can forward it on to you.
The only thing that I have, Mr. Moore, thank you for noticing, and the credit actually goes to Liz Beadle. She has done an excellent job of putting that all together and organizing it, so thank you, Liz, too.
Yeah, I just want to, again, just echo what Mr. Bertram just said. Just credit to the folks behind the scenes that make things like tonight possible, to provide you the information that you need. Liz Beadle, putting together the ESSER 3 communications. She still has several more parts to that series that communicate out for our community who's listening in. If you pay attention to those communications, we'll start getting into some summer opportunities for the children, being supported by the ESSER 3 allocations for the recovery plan. So again, just credit to Ms. Beadle there. Also, the Early College Academy, that 100% has been a lift with Melissa Prohaska, our secondary coordinator in the curriculum department. So again, just appreciate her hard work there. Just a few more thank yous and I'll close out. I want to thank our bus drivers. We were talking today about, who we need to continue to thank. Our bus drivers have been lifesavers this year. I just appreciate all their hard work and all the fun they have with our kids at the start and end of every school day. And last but not least, just a thank you to the regional employers and higher education institutions over the last month that we've been reaching out, really bugging for time, FaceTime, to really entertain endorsing the Ready Now 100 campaign for the Passport to Tomorrow. Appreciate those that have come on board, appreciate those who are considering coming on board, and appreciate those who haven't checked their emails yet and have an invitation to come partner with Middletown City School District. We're just excited about the energy behind it.
And also just a reminder that we have a board meeting again next Monday, then 3 weeks will be the second meeting in April.
All right, thanks for that reminder. With that being said, is there a motion to adjourn into executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official with no action to follow?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Mulligan?
Yes.
Dr. Urso?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mrs. Schreiber?
Yes.
Ms. Novak?
Yes.
Good evening.